Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to our talk this evening. My name is Mira Bogle, and I'm the founder of Mira's Made from Scratch. And today's topic that I'm hosting, and a topic very close to my heart, is called Debunking Myths Around Menopause. And I'm joined this evening by Shirin, by Prithi, and by Juliana, and I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves in a moment. Firstly, I just wanted to talk about what menopause is. And a lot of people start off by, and I suppose a place to start really is to say that menopause does exist. And I have heard from many women that menopause doesn't exist. It's an illness, or it's something that doesn't happen to Asian women. It's something that only happens to a particular demographic of women. And you hear all of these types of things. Or if you don't look after yourself, this is what happens. And you become very sick. There's lots, and then there's nothing you can do about menopause. So there's quite a lot of myths that I have heard, and quite a lot of statements that I've heard that are not quite correct. And that's why I thought it was quite important to come on today and just try and debunk some of those myths. Firstly, menopause is a stage. Menopause is something that happens to every woman, just as a woman will go through puberty and have a period, and those kind of biological changes that happen. Exactly the same thing with menopause. And menopause is divided into three areas, or three stages, should we say. One is the first kind of start of that is perimenopause. The other bit is menopause, and then there's postmenopause. And so to really quickly give you a quick, very, very quick overview of it, is that perimenopause can last anything up to 10 years, and it can start in your late 30s. It can start in your 40s, more commonly in sort of early 40s to 45, can last anything up to 10 years. And then you go into, and during that time, you will still have periods, and we'll talk about the symptoms and things. And I think Prithi and Shirin and Juliana will explain about those a little bit more. And then you would go into menopause. And menopause is literally that 12-month time where you do not menstruate at all. So you do not have a period for 12 months. And that is menopause. And as soon as that 12-month period is finished, you are then postmenopausal. And so menopause as an umbrella can last anything up to 20 years of our life. So we will be postmenopausal once we've finished going through that 1 year period of menopause. So it is a really important part of our lives. It can be quite a large and significant part of our lives. And so it's really important that we learn to understand what's happening to us, why these things are happening perhaps, and therefore we can then be more educated and have more knowledge about how we can actually help ourselves to live during this time in a better way, because there are a lot of women that suffer with menopausal symptoms and actually don't know that they're suffering with menopausal symptoms, and will often get prescribed things like antidepressants and things because of the symptoms that they're having. So that's a very brief and very quick kind of overview of menopause. And I know Juliana's looking at me going, God, that was like a whistle-stop tour. A whistle-stop tour, as quick as I could make it. But I think what I'd like to do is just introduce you to our panel. And then we can start that conversation going from there. So Juliana, could you introduce yourself first, and also just explain why today's conversation is important for you?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Joanne Alexander, and I am a registered nutritional therapist with BANT, the British Association of Nutritional Therapists in the UK, and I'm also a member of the Institute of Functional Medicine. That means that the approach that we take with our clients and our patients is that we look at the whole person. So it's very much support of the entire person, not just a chronic thing like we will have in medicine. And that is so important in menopause. So menopause is, for me as a woman in her 50s, it's obviously very current. It's obviously something that I'm going through myself. And just working with women in nutritional therapy, it is something that you're lucky enough to go through, really, if you get to our age. But it's also something that there's a lot of confusion about. One of the first things is, like Mira said, about the difference between perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause. And there's a few myths around this. One of the myths really is that it starts in your 50s. And that is the first thing that people get wrong, because really menopause can start from your late 30s and carry on until, in your 60s, when people actually even only go through menopause. So that is why, as a nutritional therapist, it's so important, because everybody is different. We're all biochemically different, and the way that our bodies deal with things are different, and how we come to it, our current health also has a huge impact. And a lot of times in this phase of menopause, the drop in the estrogen production in your ovaries shows up. Because of that, you actually see other things that have been going on in the background, whether it is insulin resistance, whether it is adrenal fatigue. All of those things actually come to the forefront as you go through menopause. So it's really an interesting and a natural process that we're going through. But it isn't just the loss of fertility. It is a metabolic shift that a woman goes through, because it impacts on so many different things, in our health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the work that we've done with the women that we've been working with during the program that I run and Juliana is on, it's been so interesting to see that that's exactly what's happening. It's kind of almost like a complete shift. And what women when I speak to women and before they join the program where we offer support and help and lifestyle changes, is very much that they've got low self-esteem. They feel like their body's been taken over by aliens and they're just not that same person anymore. They can't eat what they used to eat. They can't drink what they used to. They can't sleep the way they used to sleep. So there is a lot, as you said, exactly to that, where there's shifts happening inside the body, which aren't just that kind of loss of fertility. Yeah.
And it's a physiological shift, because of the hormone changes that are happening. There's physical changes happening in their bodies, and then also emotional changes that goes with that, because your hormones all work together. And that is, one of the things that we help to support people with, is both the changes as well. And that's where Shireen comes in as well, with that emotional side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Juliana. It's a great introduction. And I think, Shireen, if I could ask you to introduce yourself from both aspects, actually, professionally and also from the kind of the angle of going through the menopause yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. So yes, so like Mira said, I'm actually qualified and accredited psychotherapist, psychoanalyst. So I've got my own private practice, and I've been working for 10 years, and I worked with homeless clients, and I worked with various, kinds of mental illnesses. So really, I'm today here wearing two hats, because I'm here as Juliana said, as a psychotherapist, plus I'm here because I'm still am part of Mira's menopause program. But one of the things that Juliana mentioned was that about the physiological change, but also the emotional changes which are going on, because we must remember that we have to take the body as the holistic approach in the body, not just one thing, because if one thing changes, it obviously affects something else. So it's really the mind and the body are connected, and it's very much part of how I work as well in my practice. But you find that with these changes comes brain fog, depression, anxiety, all these things come along as well. And sometimes, even when you look at it, sometimes when you already have sort of what I call them are stress triggers or stressors in your life, where you're already stretched, and then you also going through menopause, which is obviously creating all these changes in your body and physically, but mentally it's having an effect. So you will obviously get more sort of stressors will increase, because you will feel more of these things. It's like an example of, for example, an elastic band, which you have stretched, but if you put more tension on it, it will get more and more tense, and then it snaps. So you have to remember, so I do work with women who are going through menopause, who are suffering from depression, anxiety, and they're like, oh, I was fine. I was doing all of this before in my early years. And what's happened now? I can't do everything that I've been doing. I've been suffering. Mentally, I'm not the same person that I used to be. And so this is where, therapy comes in to try and sort of understand what's going on, gain the knowledge mentally. And obviously where sort of Juliana and you, Mira, come in is you work sort of with the body side of things. And then, you would look at mentally what's going on. Now, so that's part of what I do professionally. Now, we're sort of coming in as a person who's experienced menopause. For me, it started off, I always used to get quite heavy periods, but my sort of clock was always very, very sort of, 30 days clock, and that was it. The timing was always the same. And then all of a sudden, I think when I turned 40, things started to change, heavy bleeding, and I didn't know what was going on. And I just took it along thinking it's just carrying on. And that's, for me, that was the issue with the bleed. But
Shirin,
then,
can I just ask you, were there any other symptoms that you
yes,
you had as well? Were there any other changes?
So there was, and then the weight. I gained weight, especially around my stomach. That was one of the things. And then I used to get hot flushes, a lot of hot flushes. But the weight thing was something that was really worrying me, because I was putting on weight and it just would not shift. And obviously that is a concern. And that's when sort of I approached you, Mira, and working on the,
If I just jump in there, a lot of women, that is probably one thing that they hate the most about it is weight gain. And that has got everything to do with your estrogen, because estrogen is what makes us female. Estrogen is the bit that gives us our rounded hips and gives it, our breasts and all those, even a higher pitch in our voices. All of that is estrogen. And then when the estrogen starts declining, that shifts. So even people that don't gain weight as much, but if they get on the scales and they're the same weight, the distribution of the weight changes more towards the belly. So and they even if you don't gain a lot of weight, people find that different, all of a sudden. And that's all to do, if you think about it, to do with that decline in estrogen. So it makes sense if, when you think. But it is quite, it's quite a strange thing to happen to us.
Yeah. And it's like you said, like your body doesn't feel like it's your own body, so changes are happening.
Yeah. Were there any other kind of significant symptoms that you've were feeling as well? Was there anything that you now look back and and you think, oh yeah, that was definitely signs of because you're perimenopausal, right?
Yes, I am perimenopausal. Yeah, I think it was also the brain fog, like having this sort of dull feeling, this dullness in the head, like not able to think clearly, and sort of lack of energy, I think, was something I do remember as well. Because I always sort of have fatigue. Yes, fatigue. And I think my diet has always been something that I've been quite careful about, my food and things that I've eaten. But I think one of the things that you said to me when I came to you was, you said, you're not eating enough food. You're not eating enough calories. And I remember when you put us on sort of the food that I hate, I'm not going to use the word diet because it wasn't a diet.
No.
It was the food that we were eating was this sort of, the nutrition. I also don't like using good and bad for food. I think food is what nutrition food gives us. And I think the amount that we were eating, and within I think 3 weeks, I remember telling you, I just feel so much energy. My head the brain fog just sort of vanished. And and around the stomach, the weight sort of coming off, which was incredible with the amount of food that I was eating.
And I think the reason for that is because actually naturally what starts to happen is that when you start to gain weight, or you, as Juliana says, that distribution of fat is happening, if you don't realize you're going through perimenopause and you don't realize that this actually is something that's physiologically, something that's happening, on a chemical level, but also kind of on a physical level, what you do instinctively is stop eating or reduce. You're thinking, well, I'm eating too much. And actually the reverse is true. More often than not, we're not often eating enough of the right nutrients to help and support our body as well.
Mm.
So
I think
thank
it
you,
works
Sharon.
when
Yeah.
you're younger, but it doesn't work it works when you want to lose weight when you're in your 20s and you reduce your calories and you lose the weight. But
Yes.
So
obviously that seems like the opposite.
yeah.
One of the most important things about going through menopause is nourishing yourself. You know, nourishing yourself with the right foods, with whole foods and the right protein and good quality fats, and then also nourishing yourself with self-care and you know, the mental side of it, looking after yourself and exercise and all of that. But it's definitely that self-care and that nourishment that needs to come into play. And a lot of times with women, especially in your 50s, you've got you know, the whole sandwich thing of looking after older parents and then looking after kids as well. So you sort of put yourself on the back burner and you're the last person to look that you're looking after. And this is the time where you need some self-care and some nourishment. And you have to consciously make that decision, because otherwise it's going to be harder and harder, because there are all these metabolic changes happening in your body. So, and all these hormonal changes. So you have to make sure that you give yourself all the right nutrients and all the right care as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, exercise in itself has been, and I think there's more and more research just showing that, you know, whilst as we go through perimenopause and menopause and all, and those stages, one of the other symptoms can be, as we said, fatigue, but also joint pains, and you know, and that's very, very common. And actually, exercising using the right type of exercise, so not putting stress on your body in an excessive way, but using exercise as a tool to really help your body become stronger and become more supple and more flexible, because we do lose a lot of collagen as we get older, you know, and that really does have an impact on, and also with things like osteoporosis, you know, our bones are, you know, all of that, there's a higher risk of that, there's a higher risk of diabetes, high risk of heart disease, because of those shifts that are happening internally. Priti, we finally come to you. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you very kindly agreed to be here today. Kind of tell us a little bit about your journey and your experience.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm going to be 50 this year, and I've, you know, what Shirin and Juliana and yourself have sort of touched upon was I need to do something for myself. I'm the sandwich generation, looking after kids, looking after parents. And again, you know, I was gaining this weight around the middle of the belly, and I was like, what is happening? Forgetting things, hot flushes, and always thought that, you know, my diet was okay, but realizing then that my diet actually shouldn't be what I was eating 20 years ago, because that was different. My body was different then, and now the body is changing. You know, it's different now. And I've never been an exercise type of person, because I was always one size from a certain age up till, you know, quite recently. So I thought, why do I need to exercise? When I saw this belly sort of growing, and I was like, I need to do something about it. And I think that's when I sort of first approached you. That there was lots of things going on, and I thought, no, I've got to put myself first.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what were there were other symptoms, I think, as well, you were telling me, and actually even still now, you when you're talking to me about stuff, you're sort of explaining that there are still symptoms. So it's kind of not like, okay, well, I did the program and actually now everything's hunky-dory and I'm absolutely, you know, that there's no symptoms or anything at all, but you did have some other symptoms as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I still have hot flushes. They haven't disappeared, you know, they're less,
But they're not completely gone.
but yeah, they're not completely gone.
No. And what about things? And when did your symptoms start?
So I probably first noticed them about the hot flushes and that probably about 5 years ago. But after my second child, my periods got a lot heavier, and I thought when I went to the doctors, they were saying that's just normal. It's not. It's just something that happens. But from talking to Julia and talking to yourself, it's if perimenopause sort of starts 10 years before your menopause, then that could be the case in my I never thought about it that way until quite recently. That my periods became a lot more heavier. The sort of the weight gain sort of crept on without me realizing, because and then the sort of the hot flushes, and then now it's the sleep that I recognize more, that I'm disturbed more by the sort of night sweats and at night.
So
I mean, sleep is a big one for people. Because you need cold for you to sleep better. A cold room is better for you to sleep at night, and then obviously your temperature fluctuates, with the hot flushes, with the night sweats, with all of that. So it is really unpleasant. And the thing with what that means is that all your hormones and things depend on that sleep. And then the next day, you because you had so little sleep, you eat more as well, to try and so you've got that whole blood sugar roller coaster going on the next day, because you're eating to and you're craving those foods, because the cortisol, because you've not slept properly, your cortisol levels are out, and that's your stress hormone, and that actually makes you crave junk food, because you crave high calorie and you crave fat and sugar. And then it becomes a habit as well, and it changes your eating patterns, because then you add more fat cells, and the extra fat cells are metabolically active, and they ask you, those little hormones send messages, and they ask you for more of those food. So it becomes a little circle that you go through, and it all starts with that sleep. So it's really important that for that circadian rhythm to set that properly, so that all your hormones can go into balance, really.
And I think the other thing as well is as we are having our families a little bit later in life, because we're some of us have got careers and things that we want to do, or we just choose to have our families later in life. We can often be going through all of those things all at the same time, and we have a young family, and we may be going through sleepless nights ourselves, not just simply because we're looking after the children, but because we're actually going through perimenopause, and all of those symptoms can all be intertwined in together, and it gets quite complicated. Because one of the myths is that I've heard quite often as well, I can't be going through perimenopause. We've tackled the one about I'm too young, or menopause, should I say, I'm too young. But the other one is I can't get pregnant. When you're in menopause or perimenopause, or your periods are fluctuating, well, I can't get pregnant. And that's a complete myth, because you are still ovulating, you are still having a period. It may not be as regular, and they may be heavy, and they may be very different to how you normally experience them, but you can still actually become pregnant. It's not, I remember in the past hearing of people going, oh, it was, accident. And you sort of think, accident? This is when I was in my 20s, and I had aunties or whatever in their 40s or whatever, 50s. And it was sort of, 40s, late 40s. It was an accident. I'm thinking, really? How did that happen? How do you have an accident at 45? But I get it now, now going through it, I understand that actually that myth of not being able, you can't be pregnant is something that we kind of grew up with. As well. I would just, Priti, I'm just sort of interested in, I know your connection's a little bit on and off, and if we lose you, that's fine. I'm sorry about that. But I remember you also asked, you've got, you've got your mum as well that you had spoken to about this. And what did she, what was her reaction? Again, this is sort of South Asian community, what did your mum say to you?
Yeah, she kind of said, well, what's menopause? She never suffered from anything, or never sort of suffered from it, or never happened, or didn't admit to having symptoms. It's like, well, did you feel this when I was? Do you have hot flushes? And for her and a lot of my aunties as well, they were like, no, they're kind of in denial, and it's almost like the tap switched off. You know, one day they were on a period, and then the next day they didn't have a period. And
yeah, that's exactly what my mum said to me. You know, she was very sort of like, what do you mean? What is all of this? Like, why are you making, like, what is, like, no, absolutely not. You know, it was exactly that. She said, no, I just woke up one morning and it was all gone, and that was it. It was all done. And then as I kept going through it and explaining it to her and saying, because I started suffering from hot flushes very early. So in my early 40s, and actually hot flushes don't stop. They can, for about 1 in 4 women, they can actually carry on and on and on and on. So, you know, it's something we learn to live with. But I remember that, yeah, yes, exactly. But I remember her then saying to me, oh yeah, she said, oh, I do remember your aunt. She did used to get very hot and have a fan. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That was it, Mum. That's all. So she's like, yeah, but that never happened to me. I just, like, you know, so it's interesting. Shirin, what about you? Have you ever discussed it with any of your family or relatives or friends even?
Well, I spoke to my aunts and they were like, oh no, my aunt was like, oh no, I was fine. And one of the aunts said, oh, she didn't feel anything. Like Pretty said, it was just like one of the taps on the next day, it's gone off. But the other one sort of said, oh yeah, I did get a bit of hot flushes, but then it just went away. And my mum was like, oh, I don't remember anything. No. So it's like, because I'm very curious, because I really wanted to find out from them, like, you know, what did you go through? Because it's nice to know that. But and for me now, I'm like, my daughter, I'm sort of informing her and talking to her about it and being quite open with her, so she has the knowledge, so she's equipped with it, you know, so it doesn't just happen to her and she doesn't know what's going on here.
No.
I think there's a one of the myths is that it's only hot flashes.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, nobody thinks about even mood swings or fatigue or sleep difficulty, even a bit of adult acne that you get. You know, all of a sudden in your 40s, you're starting to get like a few bumps. You know, those are all possible, you know, menopausal symptoms. You know, vaginal dryness or discomfort, even digestive symptoms. All of that can be linked to menopause, but people just link it to just getting older, not necessarily menopausal symptoms, even loss of libido. They just think, oh, as you get older, you know, that's just what happens. But all of those are actually menopausal symptoms as well.
Yeah. And I think what's worrying as well, if you actually look back over the generation, you don't even have to look back, even look at the women that we, you know, as we are today, maybe our friends, maybe our family, you know, other things that, as I said, that increased risk of heart disease, the increased risk of diabetes, the increased risk of osteoporosis. Some of these are quite dangerous. You know, some of these things are, and again, and things like anxiety, you see, you know, and that thing of becoming withdrawn, and you see that as people get older, they kind of are, you know, their hips go, or they're this, you know, something or the other sort of gives way. That's very worrying as well. And is that, so Julianne, just to kind of ask you, are those things that are inevitable, or is there something that, because that's something that I get told, well, it's inevitable, you're going to happen, it's going to happen.
Isn't inevitable, you know what I mean? It's being aware of this, being aware of the changes that are happening. It is being aware of this whole hormonal dance that is happening, which, you know, realizing even a little thing like sleep affecting your cravings of junk food the next day, you know, realizing that helps you counter it, helps you that you don't form those habits. You know, that you think, oh, you know what, either I have to have a power nap, or I have to have a big glass of water, or, you know, you've got to think of ways, or I have to go set my circadian rhythm and putting things in place. You get sunlight early in the morning, you know, so that you can set yourself up for the rest of the day as well with your hormones. All of those things, you can definitely make a difference. And you don't, things that like exercise, we don't have to exercise less as we grow older. You know, it is, there's so much you might exercise differently.
Yes, yes,
You know?
definitely.
But you don't have to exercise less. You can still get enough movement, because those are the things we have to keep moving, because we don't. It's about menopause, but it's always also about aging healthily, because all of us want to reach an old age, but it is, what do you want to do when you get to that age? How do you want to live? Do you want to be able to go out and do the things that you enjoy now? Or, you know, and part of that is looking after yourself now in your 50s to be able to enjoy your 70s. You know,
Totally.
the movement is important. Nourishing your body, putting the right foods in there, putting the right nutrients. You know, with exercising, even sweating, helping your body detoxify is really important. Getting the right vitamin D and sunshine and all of those things, and then relationships, you know, family and people and all that. Relationships is a big part of it, because we are, because of those stress hormones as well, because we are it is difficult to balance everything. Our generation has a very hard task, because a lot of women are working full time, and they're looking after family and looking after children, and you know, it's all those the extras that women have to cope with, and add menopause to that mix. You know, it's important that you really look after yourself, but it doesn't have to be. Weight gain isn't a must. You can definitely manage that. Diabetes is a risk factor, especially in the South Asian community as well, because there is a genetic predisposition as well. So managing those cortisol levels and eating the right foods is important, because with diabetes, it's all about insulin. And eating refined carbohydrates means that your beta cells in your pancreas squirt more insulin. So it is important to have protein with your meals, so that you can have a slower release of that insulin. So, and you don't have those up and down spikes. I think the number one thing is balancing blood sugar to help your hormones, and eating the right foods, eating the right proteins and the right fats and everything to help. But
absolutely.
You know, none of those things that you think, like osteoporosis doesn't have to be a factor. You know, weight-bearing exercise is really important. Relaxation, like with yoga and those things, that's really important. It's all the things we know, but not necessarily the things we do.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Shirin, sorry.
No.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Shirin, I was just going to, go on. I was going to ask you actually, what are the sort of things, because there's lots there, you know, and Juliana's saying so many things that we now look at and go, oh yeah, tick, 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 tick. But what are the things that you've done? What have you done? What would you advise somebody if they're feeling any of these symptoms that we mentioned? And just to mention as well, some of the other symptoms, if anybody's watching as well, there are 34 or more. You know, there are so many, it's endless. And some people state 34, but there's actually more than that. But, you know, things like hair loss, increased urinary tract infection, you know, and also change in the genitalia area. You know, you can get thinning of the walls, because if your skin is thinning here because of lack of collagen and loss of collagen, which is happening, it's happening everywhere. So, you know, it's not just that it's happening on your skin and you're losing all of that. But sorry, so to go to Shirin, what are the things that you have done that's helped you? What are the sort of, what do you feel you are easy to translate into doing and has made an impact on your menopause?
You see, one of the things I think what Juliana said, that nowadays the life that we lead is so busy, because as women we have our careers, we have our kids, we have our husbands, we also have extended families, especially with South Asian families. We have a lot more of that happening. So we are really stretched. And thing that keeps coming up that I hear is a lot in my clinic is, oh, am I being selfish? Meaning, if I take out time for myself, if I do something for myself, am I being selfish? And the question is, why do you think you're being selfish if you're just looking after yourself? And thing is, about one thing that I did was that, yes, I sort of changed my lifestyle, because I knew that, and it's not that I'm cutting back on what I used to do, it's being aware of things like, okay, for example, if you haven't slept the night before, yes, you probably get a nap in the afternoon. or get an early night that night. If you're sort of, because that will happen, because sometimes you might get hot flushes in the night. For me, if I get a hot flush, I might get up completely drenched with sweat. I'm sure we've all suffered that, despite the fan being on, and you can't go back to sleep. But next day, remember, okay, you're tired, but you have to still get up because the kids still have to go to school. You still have to be at work at a certain time, but maybe take 10 minutes out. And even if it's like, sometimes in between my clients, I will just sit there and just do some breathing exercises. I'll just sit on my chair, or I'll just sit and breathe even for a minute. Or I'll just have, in between clients, I might have a power nap for 15 minutes. I've changed the food that I eat, because I know certain kinds of foods that I used to eat are not working for me now. Like you mentioned, the hair loss. My hair was falling, and I had to say, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to eat or drink, or whatever I have to change here to do that? Exercise, for example. I mean, I think coming into your program, I think I have to say I'm fitter than I was. I mean, I think I was like, I think when I was probably 18, I was quite fit, but then I lost that. And with the weight and stuff, and now I can say, I mean, I'm lifting heavier weights than I've ever lifted, and my grandmother had osteoporosis, and I had my check done for osteoporosis, and I don't have it because of the fact that I do these weight-bearing exercises. So all these things, you have to be, you do have to take your time out, and you have to see, give yourself a break and see that, okay, it's self-care, it's looking after yourself. Even like, and it's the food, it's the meditation, it's the exercises, it's everything. It's even the, like the meditation is mental yoga, things like that. And sometimes even if you feel that you need like these times, like for example, Julian has said about the food, that you might be tired and you might reach out for that pastry. And then you get back into this vicious circle where you feel guilty about it, and then you do it again and again. What's going on there? And even if you have to approach somebody for some counseling or something, because there might be something else going on in your life that is also adding another thing whilst you're going through menopause as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that it's not, so there's not a stigma in reaching out to get the help. So ask for the help. And also, I think another thing is educating your family about what's going on.
Yes. It's so important.
The men in your life.
Right. I was just going to say, I think one of the things that we don't realize is that women who are going through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause in the workplace, firstly, are hugely it hugely impacts their ability to get promoted, their ability to continue to be employed, because they're not being supported. And then if you add to that at home, so it's about relationships, as Juliana was saying, and if you add to that at home, if you're not able to, and I know in the South Asian community, it's really, really difficult to talk about things like periods or pregnancy or those kinds of things. And then to add into the equation menopause, quite a lot of women will be, they may not know that's what they're going through. And then when they do, that's what realize or become educated about, this is what I'm going through. It's like, well, how do I approach my husband? How do I, why is it so difficult for us to be intimate? Why is it so difficult for I like you said, that loss of libido, also those hot sweats, you're lying next to someone and it is inevitable that person's also going to get a disturbed sleep, because you're literally changing the sheets or whatever it may be. It's just awful. So it is about that communication, but that can be so hard. Priti, how I mean, I know you were brilliant right from the start. She was so good. You were like, right, kids, this is what we're doing. Right, I'm having this, you're having that. This is what's happening. Da, 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 da. And you're very open with your children. You're very open with your husband as well. I mean, I don't know if you can, but how was it? How did you is it just your personality? Is it something you just thought, right, I've got to do this?
Well, I think you're right. I think it was not my personality, but more of the self-care. You have to put yourself first. And just telling the family, because I've got teenage children, so they're going through their changes as well. So like you said, we always sort of recognize puberty, but we don't recognize the menopause. So I was like, well, I'm feeling hot. I'm sitting here and I'm like kind of sweating, and I was asking them, are you feeling hot, or is it just me? Is it me who's feeling this? And it was like, if it's just me, then there's something, I wouldn't say something's wrong with me, but this is the symptom I'm going through.
Yeah.
Because of menopause. So trying to explain to them, like Shirin said, just giving them that information as well, that there are issues going on with my body, and it might impact, what my mood is like as well. And then I'll take it out on them. And it was like, is it me who's doing stuff that I'm going through, causing me to be like that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Ooh,
it is. It's completely normal, isn't it? And
yes, it is.
I'm not saying about discussing it with your husband, discussing it with. It's a completely normal thing that we go through. Okay, and so we have to normalize it. We have to tell our children that we're going through it. We have to tell our husbands this is what's happening, and this is what's happening to me, and in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
I had one of my friends was over the weekend. Saw her, and she is very senior in the a very senior rank in the RAF. And so she's in this male-dominated world.
Yeah.
And a lot of times she's the only female in the room. And now she goes red, blood red, because she's getting these hot flashes. And, and one of the men said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm okay. I'm having a hot flash. I'm going through menopause. It's normal. Otherwise, if she tries to hide it, or that's going to make her have more hot flashes and make her more nervous. So it's better to just name it and deal with it. Yeah. And they all have partners and wives or mothers or sisters or daughters. So the more they know about it, the better. Really, for your families, is how she sees it, which I really admire.
I think it is. It's Go on, Shirin.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because I was just thinking about something, because I think in South Asian families, very traditional families, it's a thing of shame to talk about women's bodies or women's issues. I mean, okay, yes, use the word issue. That's how it's probably looked upon, as an issue.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And it passes on to generations that it's not spoken about because it's a thing of shame. You cover it. And it's like how, the topic is debunking the myths, but how do you debunk that myth that it's something of shame? It still goes on. It does
go on, but I think, Shirin, this is how we debunk it. This is exactly what we're doing today. You're here as a 50-year-old woman who is celebrating her body right now. You are the fittest, healthiest, happiest you've been. You are flourishing, right? You literally are. I've seen that transition, and I've seen, yes, okay, we've still got the menopausal symptoms, and yes, all right, we might need to be looking at different things, and it's going to be an evolving journey from now till whatever, but that's fine. That's just normal. That's life. But this is how we debunk it, and exactly how Prithi is saying, talking to your mum, talking to her daughter, talking to her friends about it, because we can't do it alone. And it isn't, this is specifically about the South Asian community because we're on a South Asian, platform. But it happens everywhere. I have friends who are not South Asian, who are from many different cultures, and within those cultures, it's exactly the same. And I think it is just really, really important to talk about and celebrate our bodies in whatever state that they're in. The body that's after a baby's been born. The body that we have got now, which is changing. But it's beautiful, and it will only be beautiful, and we'll only be able to change those if we come out and do things. And I think that's what's driving me, literally what's driving me. I think my mom would probably, I'm sure my family are going, but I've never really been one to listen. And I just think that we've got to show up. We've got to show up for those women all right, they may not be able to access everything. And, again, going to the doctor is one thing that I think I just wanted to touch on really quickly, Julian, because I know we've got about 15 minutes or so left, but really quickly wanted to touch on is that quite often when you go, women will a lot of women ask me, can I get tested? How do I know? Is there something that I can do that will tell me that I'm going through menopause? Is there something that is that a question that you can answer?
Yes, there is. You can fill in, there's questionnaires that you can look at the different symptoms to tell you basically if you're going through menopause. With the fluctuating hormones, with periods, different time, that will tell you also. And then there are tests as well. There are different hormone tests. The one that I prefer is called the Dutch test. And that is the reason I like the Dutch test is because it's a urine test, so it's easy for people to do at home. And it shows up all the metabolites of the estrogen, or of all the hormones that you've used. And it's also combined with a saliva test that shows your stress hormones, because those two really, really work together. So you can see whether your stress hormones are what they're supposed to be throughout the day, because hormones are really tricky. They're not. They pulse in at different times of the day and night, different hormones. It's not just like you take this hormones at this time. That's why even with HRT and things, it takes a while for people to figure out what works for them and what doesn't. Because, some people you'll use the estrogen and they use one pump, and other people use two pumps, and other people use it morning and an evening. It's different for everybody because all of our bodies are different as well. So our needs are different. So the test is a really nice way, because it'll tell you what your progesterone levels are like. And what to do with that, and it'll tell you where your estrogen, where you're fluctuating with that, and what is happening with your estrogen. And it also tells you testosterone. It also tells you then your cortisol, your stress hormones, because you want your stress hormones to pulse in at different times of the day. You want it to be very high early in the morning, so that it helps you get out of bed. Because if you think about it, you've just had a 12-hour overnight fast. And now you've got to have the energy to get you out of bed. And that's where cortisol. So all of these things are not good or bad. They all have a role in our bodies. Cortisol is really, really important. The only time it becomes bad is the lifestyles that we are leading now, that it is this chronic drip, chronic cortisol the whole time, which then impacts on your insulin and your estrogen and all of that as well. So it is good to test and to see where you are, but and everybody's in different situations, and depending if they've got the money to spend on that, because it is a private test. The doctors, GPs don't really test for hormones because they do a blood test, and so it isn't as it doesn't give you as much detail as what the urine test gives you, but they also don't do the urine test because it's expensive. The NHS only has this much money that they can spend on it. So they will do the questionnaire, and you can get a lot of information in the questionnaires as well. And from there, they can make decisions. You can see certain things, whether it's progesterone, certain things, whether it's estrogen, certain things, whether it's cortisol, and already you can balance and help people, with that, just by doing that.
Okay. No, that's really useful, because that's, I think, a lot of people will, go to the doctor, and quite often with GPs, again, I'm not dismissing GPs at all, because they work very, very hard and they've got a lot on their plate, and they're not specialists at everything. So, that's just really not what this is about. But, and I think the situation is changing each and every day for the better for all of us. But there are very few menopause clinics anywhere. There's very, very little advice that's available anywhere. So I think having that kind of information would be really useful, but also going to your doctor armed with the terminology like perimenopause, menopause, having a diary of a month of your symptoms, that's kind of thing.
Because by just giving them your symptoms, they can already, like I said, because they can tick on the questionnaire And they will see whether it is more things are ticked in the progesterone section, more things are ticked in the estrogen section, more, and that already helps them to decide, how to help you going forward.
Yeah.
And that's really what you have to. You have 10 minutes with your GP. They are really, really overworked. They are under a lot of stress and everything, especially after this year we've just had as well. So it is up to us to know our symptoms and to go, whether it is menopause or whether you're going in with a cold. You've got to, give all your symptoms and tell exactly what is happening, because then they can help you best.
Yeah.
And the same with menopause. You have to really things that you think isn't important. You also dot those down so that because they can make that decision. And then if you want to find out more, then I really suggest that the Dutch test is excellent and really, really gives you a lot of information. And then the good thing about testing is that it gives you that baseline. It's a fact. This is your story right now. Okay, these are the metabolites in your urine that we've shown. And then from there, you can go forward, whether you need more phytoestrogens, whether you need more brassicas, whatever different foods and things, or, whether you need more exercise, whether you need more stress management, all of those things can come into play because it'll show up on the test as well.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you. Sharon, I suppose my question really was to you, because we are, trying to debunk some myths with loads and loads of facts, I think, is what we're trying to do. That's my other way of debunking myths is, yes, talking about it, but talking about and giving factual information. Did you know about menopause before where you are now, before your journey started?
I knew of menopause, but the detail and the knowledge that I have now, I did not. I think, I think one of the things is that if you're going through something, you need to get the knowledge. You need to do research. You need to read up on things. You need to know what is going on with your body and your mind. You need to find out what. So I think, like I said, I think I knew of it, but now I know more about it, because obviously I've come to you, you've helped me a lot. I've read up on it quite a lot. I've spoken to Juliana, and I know a lot more, definitely.
Yeah. And can you see how women just get lost in it, and then just kind of, it just is, it's just that, or it's just that, or I'm just feeling a bit low, or I'm just feeling a bit, it's just, don't worry, it's that. Can you see how, you get kind of caught up in that, and then you don't actually do anything about it?
Yeah, it's very easy, isn't it? Because you just suffer in silence. And I mean, I see it all the time in my clinic, is this suffering in silence that goes on. And you just get so used to the suffering, because to do something, you have to actually make a change. And making a change is just not something that happens overnight.
No.
For me to get here where I am, it's taken me a year.
Yeah.
From where I started when I first approached you.
Yeah.
And it's been a commitment. It's been a change of my lifestyle, and it is a change that you need to make. But the thing is, you're investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Which will, we're very quick in spending time doing things like, for example, you'd go and have a drink, right? You'll go and have a dinner or something, and you'll easily come out spending hundreds of pounds or something, right? And things like that. But then if you think about it, what about investing in yourself? Because if you invest in yourself, that will last longer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. And I have to say, from a personal level, I didn't know about menopause. I had no idea, and it was really only 5 or 6 years into perimenopause that I realized that was what was happening, that there were hormone changes happening. And that's when I started to explore and investigate how food could help, and what is it that I'm doing, because things were changing, and I was literally just, couldn't touch my toes. I just couldn't do anything. It was so painful, and hair loss was terrible. Periods were horrendous. Hot flushes were just horrific. And it was just terrible. And there was nobody to turn to. I didn't know. And every time I went to the doctor, quite rightly, I was saying I'm going through menopause, and they were saying, no, are you having a period? Yes. So you're not going through menopause. Oh, okay. And I'd then go off and think, what's wrong with me? You know, and that happened for years and years and years and years until I actually sat, you know, looked at it into it myself and researched it myself. And I just think that that's a really sad situation, because there are people who won't do that. There are people who will just sit, as you said, in silence. So I think, you know, if there's, you know, one of the things about today is that if anybody is watching this and needs to know more, please do contact any one of us. Actually, we're all very happy to help you. But you can find out more, and you know, you can help yourself in very simple ways. You don't need to. Yes, you need to. You're right, Sharon. You do need to invest in your self-care, as Juliana's also said. But it doesn't always have to be or sort of from a monetary thing either. You know, just being aware of those things means that you're more likely to be able to then seek help. Prithvi, I know your internet connection is sort of dipping in and out, and I'm just going to take a bit of a risk, a bit of a chance here, and just ask you as well. I asked Sharon, what is did you know about menopause at all before you wait from, you know, where you are now? In comparison to where you are now, did you know about menopause at all? Oh no, she's gone. I knew she'd be gone. I'm sure she'll come back in a minute. But I think Juliana as well. I mean, I suppose from your perspective, what are the key things, if you, as a take home, as a takeaway, because we've sort of got 4 or 5 minutes left, if you were going to be giving some women advice on what to do, what sort of some key facts, you know, not too many, but just some key facts. What can they do to help
Number
themselves?
one is balancing your blood sugar. Okay, that is because it is, your hormones are changing, and cortisol or estrogen is declining. So with your estrogens declining, what happens is your ovaries aren't making as much estrogen, but your body still needs estrogen. And so the production moves over to your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands makes the estrogen. And if you are very stressed, it doesn't make enough, which then means that your fat cells takes over the production. Your fat cells aren't just there, they do jobs. And they take over the production. And that's why your body holds on to the weight as well, because it wants those fat cells to make you some estrogen because you need it. So all of those, there's always a reason for things happening. So one of the most important things is that with that change happening to the adrenal glands is that you need cofactors, you need nutrients to help your body make it. So you need zinc, and you need vitamin C, and you need your B vitamins. So eating the right foods is important, okay, just to be healthy, whether you're going through menopause or anything. But we eat for a reason. We eat to nourish our bodies. So I would say good quality protein, good quality fats. Don't do zero fat or low fat or anything like that. Eat good quality fat, and then eat whole foods, eat real foods. You need the phytoestrogens as well. So you need, all your brassica vegetables. You need flaxseed, nuts and seeds. You know, all of that. And movement is really important as well. Do your exercise. Or just walking. You don't have to start with the Olympics. You can start slowly and build up, you know. That's really, really important. But there are so many little things that you can do. It doesn't have to be. And then try with your sleep. You know, sleep is such an important thing. So look at the habits that you've got. Is it that you take your phone to the bedroom at night? Is it that blue light is impacting on your sleep as well? You know, we know what we're doing wrong. So what can you do to help yourself? And then seek help. Ask people for help. There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of information out there.
Yeah. No, you're right. There are some little, those are great tips. As you said, even including a few different things into your meals every day, into what you're eating. Things like exactly like you said about the sleep, just making sure your sleep routine is right as well, is really, really important. Sharon, how about yourself? What would you your last bit of advice to women, men watching, anyone who's watching?
Well, I think knowledge, can you get yourself armed with knowledge about it and educate your loved ones, your brothers, your sons, your husbands, your fathers, not and other people around you. And yeah, so I think that's what I would say. And and don't think that self-care is being selfish.
Yeah,
Look after yourself.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely so correct. I'm gonna finish on a thing that happened to me actually, and I was at the market. I was running one of the stall at the market, and I was chatting to a young lady. I call everybody young lady. I was chatting to a lady, and she was in her early 40s, and she was talking to me about her, the things that were happening to her. I'm kind of losing my hair and I'm feeling so tired and and the whole thing. And obviously in my head, ding ding ding, alarm bells going off, and I'm going, oh, okay. So have you considered that you perhaps might be perimenopausal? It might be something worth considering. And her friend who was next to her leapt in and said, did you just say menopause? She said that. She's not going through menopause. She's far too young to be going through it. And she looked at her friend. She said, don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. You can't be going through menopause. It's just not possible. And she looked terrified. And I have to say, there was a point at which I was like, okay, do I kind of get a little bit cross and angry and start all the knowledge out at her? Or do I just sit back and just stop and wait and let her have her rant? And I did. I stopped and let her have her rant, and her friend then went on to another stall, and the lady I was actually speaking to stayed there. And I did say to her in the end, I said, that isn't true. This isn't true. There are so many myths out there about menopause, and the fear in her friend's voice kind of said it all. And I think there's a lot of fear that's attached to menopause. There's a lot of fear because it's the unknown. And there's a lot of fear that if I open up this can of worms, what on earth is going to happen? What's going to go on? But I just think that it is so important, as everybody said, Juliana has said, to focus on your nutrition, on yourself, on your health, because if you as a human being in your own right deserve to be well and deserve to be healthy, whether you're a mother or you're a sister or you're a wife or whatever you may be, you deserve to be healthy and you deserve to be happy. And I think that's really, really important. And as Shirin has said, doing that self-care is not selfish. It's actually being selfless, because you've got to care for yourself in order to be able to care for others, if that's what you choose that you want to do. Priti, just finally, just hopefully we can get you in just for that last second. And if there was any advice you were going to give to somebody who's watching this?
Yeah, I think I agree with Shirin, look after yourself first before you look after others. That's the main thing.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I have to say thank you very, very much, Juliana, Shirin and Priti. Shirin and Priti, thank you for sharing your journeys with us, because that was really enlightening. And Juliana, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us as well, because that was hugely helpful. And Shirin as well, from your professional hat on, that was also really extremely useful to be able to hear that there are other people that are going through this, and actually that you are able to help people deal with any of those sort of mental illnesses that may be associated with it or may come as a result of menopause as well. And thank you, Priti, so much for sharing your story as well. And I think we are done. It's 8:30, and I hope everybody's enjoyed this. If you do have any inquiries and you do need to have if you would like any other further information, I'm sure that the South Asian Heritage Month team will actually link or tag us into this, so you can actually get in touch with either myself, Shirin, or Juliana. I'm not sure whether Priti wants to be people getting in touch with her. I don't know. As probably not, but myself, Shirin, or Juliana, I think would be more than happy to chat to anybody who would like some support. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we're
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye.